My name is Mia Wilson. I'm 34, a photographer by trade, capturing light and shadows for a living. But at heart, I've always been a mother, a daughter, and, unwillingly, a silent sponsor for my family. It was 8:14 a.m. when my phone buzzed. The message from my mother appeared like a verdict she had rehearsed all night. We changed all the locks on the front door and the gate code. We no longer trust you. I stared at it, not because I was surprised. Deep down, I had expected this, but because it felt disturbingly clinical, like a corporate firing. The kind of betrayal that arrives without warning, yet somehow feels inevitable. I typed back without hesitation. Understood, very smart, but I think you overlooked one thing. I didn't wait for a reply. I opened my banking app and canceled the $4,800 monthly mortgage transfer I'd been paying on my parents' house, the house they'd promised to my sister, Lindsay Carson, because she deserved it for giving them grandchildren, while I had only given years of silent sacrifice. 2 days later, a new message arrived from a law office. No emojis, no passive-aggressive ellipses, just a sharp, all-caps subject line. We have a problem. Call immediately. I never did. By the time the email landed, my decision had already been made. But to understand that morning, you need to see how it began. Not with betrayal, but with love, or at least its performance. I had spent years as the dependable one, paying bills, fixing problems, carrying the weight my family refused to shoulder. And when I stopped, when I finally withdrew, the cracks in our carefully constructed family facade became glaringly obvious. The first blow came subtly. A Sunday afternoon, scrolling through Facebook while waiting for groceries, I saw it. Lindsay and my parents smiling on the front porch of my house, holding a sign, "Home Sweet Home." The caption from my mother, "So proud of our daughter for building a future we can all share. This home is in the right hands." I read it again. Lindsay's home. The right hands. No mention of me. Not a tag. Not a nod. Not a passing word. Just thanks to Alex, the fictional placeholder they used in public to sanitize my invisible labor. I stared at the screen, a bruise forming where my chest should have been. A few days later, I confirmed with the bank. Yes, the mortgage was still under my name, but someone had submitted a request to transfer primary contact to Miss Lindsay Carson. Documents in progress. My heart stopped. Then I saw it. An unauthorized $2,400 transfer from my account to Lindsay's emergency visa, the same lifeline I had extended 2 years prior during her unemployment. I texted calmly. Me, did you use my card again? Lindsay, don't make it a thing, Mia. We needed groceries, shoes. I thought we were still sharing that one. Me, no, we weren't. No response, but my mother jumped in. Honey, Lindsay's going through so much. She said she'll pay you back. Let's not start a war over a few dollars. A few dollars. To them, yes. To me, $2,400 was a reminder of how easily my generosity had been weaponized against me. Then came the group chat. They'd renamed it Family Circle, though I never did. A meme appeared, a man handing over his wallet captioned, "Big Sister Energy, pay now, asked never." Comments piled on, my cousins tagging me, my father joking about student loans. No one defended me. I left the chat. They added me back. I left again, then blocked them all. Nothing compared to that Friday afternoon. I was mowing the backyard, the same yard I had maintained for 3 summers, my father's words echoing, "Why hire anyone when you're around anyway?" The mower sputtered. I stopped for water. The kitchen window was open. I froze. Their voices carried. Lindsay, laughing. "Did you see her face when I told Aunt Karen the house was mine?" Mom, giggling. "Once the paperwork's done, she won't be able to say a word. She insisted on keeping it in her name. That's on her." Lindsay. "Honestly, it's better this way. She's always distant, like a guest with a wallet." Mom. "She's not family anymore. She's just a sponsor." I stood there, bottle in hand, letting the water drip like blood through my fingers. The illusion I had clung to for years shattered in that single sentence. They didn't see me leave. They didn't know I'd been listening. But something new began forming. Not anger, not grief, but resolve. 3 days later, an invitation arrived in a stiff white envelope, embossed gold letters. My mother's 60th birthday. No RSVP required. A lavish affair. 60 guests. Catering. A slideshow of legacy. I didn't call. I circled the date in red. I prepared. Preparation was meticulous. $211,723.84. Total contributions: mortgage, utilities, repairs, insurance. Each line item with a date, purpose, and transaction record. Audio from the kitchen window. Screenshots from group chats. Proof of every invisible dollar I'd given. If they thought I was a passive sponsor, they were about to see a debt collector. 3 days before the party, I sat at my small apartment desk, sunlight spilling over the scattered receipts and spreadsheets. Each line item told a story: mortgage payments, repairs, insurance premiums, utility bills. Each one a silent testament to 4 years of invisible labor. I am Mia Wilson, 34, and for too long, my family treated me like I was nothing more than a balance sheet with a heartbeat, but that was about to change. I had always observed life through a lens, literally. Photography taught me patience, timing, framing moments that others miss. And now I applied that same precision to my family. Every interaction, every slight, every snide remark had been recorded, not just in memory, but in audio, screenshots, and careful documentation. I wasn't preparing a speech. I was preparing evidence. The invitation to my mother's 60th birthday was both challenge and opportunity. A room full of witnesses, a stage set for truth. I had made my decision. No shouting, no tears, just cold, undeniable proof. I thought of Stephen Garcia, my boyfriend. Quiet, grounded, always the voice of reason. He had been wary when I mentioned confronting my family publicly. But he understood my need, not for revenge, but for clarity. He would be there, not as a shield, but as someone who could witness and support the woman I had become. Each night, I rehearsed the internal dialogue. Not the words, but the stance, the calm intensity that I would need. In my mind, the projector flickered with images: the house I had paid for, the kitchen window conversation, the group chat calling me a wallet, the ledger of my sacrifices. I prepared a USB drive. Inside, every receipt, every bank transaction, every audio clip. The proof was irrefutable. I imagined the gasps, the silence, the awkward shifting of feet. My mother's emerald gown, Lindsay's forced smile, the cousins' polite clapping, all overshadowed by the truth I was bringing to light. There was strategy and restraint. The smallest misstep, anger, bitterness, excessive flourish, would give them room to dismiss me. I could see them now. They would try to normalize it, minimize it, call me dramatic. But facts don't lie. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself. Anticipation not rooted in fear, but in control. My family had underestimated me, counted on my silence, assumed my generosity would continue forever. They thought of me as a sponsor, a silent benefactor. I was about to redefine that narrative. And so I worked quietly, my camera sitting in the corner as a reminder of my other life, one in which I capture moments for beauty, for memory, for art. Now I was capturing moments for justice, for accountability, for survival. By the night before the party, my plan was complete. Every piece of evidence meticulously organized. Every emotional beat rehearsed internally. Every potential excuse or denial accounted for. I wasn't angry, not exactly. I was poised, calculated, ready to transform years of overlooked labor into undeniable clarity. Mia Wilson, the girl who had been silent too long, was ready to speak, not in words of apology, not in shouts of rage, but in the clear language of facts, numbers, and proof. The stage was set, and when I arrived, everything would change. I arrived 10 minutes late, not because I was unsure, but because timing mattered. Every second built suspense, every gaze caught a fraction of my intent. The venue was breathtaking. White linen tables, gold-rimmed glassware, 6-tier balloon arrangements, waiters gliding silently, and a projector cycling through a slideshow of vacations, birthdays, and family legacy moments. My mother stood at the front, emerald gown catching the light, a smile perfectly rehearsed. Lindsay's grin faltered the moment our eyes met. The recognition wasn't just surprise, it was apprehension. I didn't wave. I didn't whisper a greeting. I took a seat at the back, the USB drive in my clutch, my ledger and evidence tucked safely in my bag. My heart was calm, my mind sharp. The speeches began, Lindsay's first. She spoke about sacrifice, about family and family. about love. The screen behind her displayed the house I had paid for. The caption read, "Home built with love for the right hands." No mention of me. Then came my mother, raising her glass, voice lilting as she praised Lindsay's legacy. Applause followed. Polite smiles, nods of agreement. Perfect optics. Perfectly ignorant of the storm about to hit. I stood, slow, deliberate. Silence rippled through the room as heads turned. I held up the USB. I projected calm authority. Since we're celebrating legacy tonight, let's do the math. I inserted the drive into the projector. First, the audio played. My mother and Lindsay laughing, mocking me, calling me a sponsor. Gasps. A dropped wine glass somewhere near the front. Eyes wide, mouths open. Next, screenshots of the group chat. Memes, tags, jokes at my expense. Then the ledger. Months of payments for mortgage, repairs, utilities, insurance, totaling $211,723.84. Every number accounted for. Every transaction documented. I turned slowly to Lindsay. If this house now belongs to you, then I'm here not to ask for thanks, but to present a bill. Her face went pale. Are you serious? Dead serious, I said. Unless you want to call it theft. My mother's composure cracked. It was a gift. Funny, I said, stepping closer. I didn't sign a gift certificate. I signed every check. My father's anger rose. He stood as if to interject. I turned to him, calm but cutting. Want to talk about the loan applications you filed using my name as cosigner without telling me? Because I have that too. He sank back into his chair. The room held its collective breath. Then, almost theatrically, my grandfather entered. Silence. 60 pairs of eyes followed him. He took the microphone, slow and deliberate. You raised a coward. You buried her under silence. But mud doesn't hide footprints for long. The trust is hers now. He gestured to the evidence displayed. Earn your legacy. The hard way. My mother's face went white. Lindsay's knees buckled. I placed the ledger next to the gift table, clear and unflinching. You changed the locks, I said, loud enough for the back row to hear. I changed my future. I am not your donor. I am your debt collector. And with that, I walked out. No cake, no handshakes, no apologies, just the sound of my heels echoing down the marble hall. The party, their illusions, their lies, all ended with that walk. The next morning, my phone was flooded. 57 unread messages. My mother first. You humiliated me on my birthday. You made a mockery of your own blood. Then my father. I don't care what you think you're owed. You won't see a single cent. Lindsay, silent as always, posted a black screen on her Instagram story. The comments trickled in. Vague sympathy, half-hearted support. None of them knew what had been played on the projector. None had seen the invoice, the group chat, the audio from the open window. 2 days later, a call from an unknown number. Ms. Wilson, this is Daniel Moore, attorney for your parents. We'd like to discuss a potential financial resolution. I didn't speak. My posture stayed calm, my tone measured. They're not seeking litigation, he continued. They want this to go away quietly. No press, no social media, a settlement. I leaned back, slow and deliberate. Let me guess. Half the amount? A reasonable offer, he said stiffly. I have every receipt, every transaction, every audio clip of them admitting their behavior. You know why I'm calling the shots. He paused. Understood. We'll be in touch. Exactly 72 hours later, the wire transfer landed. $211,723.84. Labeled reimbursement settlement. Not a gift, not an apology, just numbers matching truth. It didn't come from my parents, not even Lindsay. The sender was a private account, likely a friend of panic-stricken influence. Even better. Justice had no need for credit cards. Only facts mattered. I printed the transaction, filed copies, saved it in 6 different places. No thank you notes, no acknowledgement. I wasn't there for reconciliation. I was there for myself. Life resumed, quieter but fuller. I walked through mornings with sunlight spilling over clean windows. Coffee dripped. Phones stayed silent. No texts, no guilt-laden requests, no family group chats. I was free. And freedom had a precise cost. $211,723.84. People asked if I felt lighter, if closure brought peace. I told them no. I felt clearer. Peace doesn't require weightlessness. It comes with gravity. the steady knowledge that you are finally standing on your own side. Weeks later, I still remember my mother's voice from years ago. If you ever left, we'd fall apart. They did, but I didn't. I wasn't bitter, broken, or waiting for permission to exist. I was done, whole, free, and grounded in truth. Sometimes I imagine them telling others the story my way, that I left over money, that I was dramatic, ungrateful, distant. Let them. I have the facts. Facts don't bend, they don't plead, they endure, just like I do now. Now, when asked why I'm not close with my family, I simply say, I stopped mistaking access for love. It shuts the conversation down, and I no longer feel the need to justify the choice. Mia Wilson, the girl who had once been silent, now lives in quiet control. Photography, coffee, sunlight, freedom. No illusions, no debt to anyone but herself. Months passed. Life moved quietly, deliberately. My mornings were my own, unbroken by the ping of requests, obligations, or silent expectations. Sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my small apartment, dust motes dancing like tiny memories I chose to keep. I watched my son Oliver play in the living room. His laughter was unfiltered, unmanipulated, a melody I hadn't realized I'd been starving for. For once, the past had no power to intrude, no strings attached to our freedom. Photography had become more than work. It was therapy. Every frame I captured, a fog-drenched morning, a golden sunset, a child chasing bubbles, was a reminder of presence, of observation without obligation. I noticed the subtle textures of life I had once ignored while being consumed by my family's manipulation. Then, one quiet afternoon, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Curiosity drew me to answer. Ms. Wilson, this is Daniel Moore again. Just wanted to confirm receipt of the settlement. You handled that very professionally. I smiled faintly. Yes, that's over. He hesitated. Just, sometimes people don't realize the value of what they've had until it's gone. I didn't answer. Truth was, I already knew my value. I didn't need acknowledgement from those who had never respected it. Some people asked if I ever regretted the confrontation, the exposure, the public unraveling. My answer was always the same. Regret requires doubt. I have none. I traded illusions for clarity, obligation for freedom. Even my mother, even Lindsay, eventually stopped reaching out. Silence replaced their theatrics, and I welcomed it. Silence was cleaner, clearer, safer than their words ever were. Mia Wilson, the daughter, the sister, the silent sponsor, no longer existed in their version of reality, but she thrived in her own, free, grounded, unapologetic. I walked through life differently now. Every choice deliberate, every boundary respected. Friends and colleagues saw a woman in control, calm, and quietly radiant. But only I knew the gravity beneath that calm, the weight of years of silent sacrifice turned into empowerment. Some evenings, I sat on the balcony, camera beside me, watching the city lights flicker, imagining the roads I could still walk, the stories I could still capture. I didn't feel lighter. I felt solid. I felt whole. And finally, I realized closure wasn't a word. It wasn't forgiveness. It was freedom. And freedom had its price, but it was mine, and mine alone. The past didn't vanish, but it no longer dictated the rhythm of my days. Mia Wilson had stepped out of shadows cast by others and into a life she could call entirely her own.